to attack what's something which is probably today not even likely to become law. But we took a stand. We took a stand and said, this is a starting point. This is where I believe we can try to begin the process. And unfortunately, my frustration has been that the President has neglected to do that. He has spoken in generalities, but he has not given us the specifics. I sat in the White House with Paul Ryan, looked him in the eye and said, Mr. President, we both got to get over this. Will you work with me? And if you don't agree with what I'm doing, will you put together a plan that can be scored by the CBO in the Congressional Budget Office in the same manner that mine was? And in effect, the President said, no. We need better leadership. And then I have an opportunity to look and say, I don't agree with him politically, but if he's focusing on things which are, in my estimation, good for America, I want America to succeed. We want to make a case for this re-election based on our joint success. That's good for America. Yes, sir.
Now, in February of 2009, the number of people employed by the wind power generation industry exceeded coal power for the first time in its history. 85,000 people permanently employed by the wind power industry versus 81,000 in coal. Coal seems to be a huge air quality issue, as was called the mercury emissions issue. What would you do to expand Pennsylvania's use of coal, or wind power, and limit the use of coal? Now keep in mind, at the time those statistics were compiled, coal generated 50% of the electricity in America versus 2% for wind.
Well, what I do think is part of an energy policy is we've got to look to create cleaner and better fuel opportunities. To be sure, one of the things that we can do with coal is that research and development continues to look at the issue of sequestration so that we can use the resource without having to deal with the carbon imprint of it simultaneously.
We already have the wind, and as Pennsylvania, a quarter of a percent of our electricity in Pennsylvania is generated by wind. Yet we have the geography that we could have 25, 30, 35%. Easy.
But at this point in time, what do you believe is the reason that they have not been able to increase their market share?
Lack of investment, lack of investment, hold us heavily subsidized this energy generation.
But at a cost, right? I mean, they've got to just today we were dealing with this kind of issue just an hour ago. I read it's sort of related, but part of the stimulus package, you talk about lack of investment. California this morning, there's a company that was into the solar panels. They received a $500 billion loan guarantee from the United States government because we were going to be the ones that were going to say, okay, let's go in there, a $500 billion loan guarantee. They just got up today and are laying off all 1,100 employees because the guy said we cannot predict in this environment, now regulatory environment, whatever.
Jobs I mentioned are permanent positions. I'm not talking construction or anything like that, like you're talking solar. These are permanent maintenance positions. These are the people that are responsible day to day, every day, for keeping this running.
I would like nothing more than to be able to have the kind of clean energy that allows us to be able to meet our energy needs while we are also simultaneously minimizing the impact on our environment. None of us is trying to become, automatic supporters of, a dirtier energy, but at the same time, the implications of all that while we're working on the kind of research that allows us to get this stuff to the market in an effective manner, we've got to pay attention to the fact that the implications of this are that in the alternative, if we shut that down, the rising costs of energy, electric generation, an awful lot in Pennsylvania depends on that. The rising costs of energy are going to go back and cost more with respect to the operations of businesses, which are going to create an impact.
But again,
for jobs. So,
coal is a heavily subsidized source of power. I mean, we spend a lot of money to make sure that your power bill is lower. You could take that money out of coal, put it in wind.
I'd be interested if you send me some of your ideas, and I would think that can work better. I would enjoy hearing some of your identification of how you believe we'll be able to make that an effective method for us to supply the energy that we need. And the fact that you've been raising the house.
There's been discussion on jobs, the economy, infrastructure. My question kind of ties all those together. Labor economists have estimated that for every $1 billion spent on infrastructure repair, whether by government or the private sector, at least 25,000 jobs will be created. That being the case, will you support and will you urge your colleagues in the House to support President Obama's proposed infrastructure bank, which won't cost so much as a single extra dollar, won't require extra revenues, therefore will not require cuts to other programs, but will be funded simply by recovery of funds and corporations that stashed overseas? Will you support that? If not, why not?
Well, man, I'm not sure that I understand the mechanics of what you said is how that is all going to work. I will certainly look at the idea of how we might be able to increase our commitment to infrastructure. I'd like to try to increase our commitment to infrastructure, but the dollars that we put into that, we're going to have to find a way to pay for. And that's one of the things.
Excuse me, Congressman, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just did mention that the president's plan is predicated upon not having to find the money anywhere. You get it back from corporations who have stashed their profits overseas. No cuts to programs, no increased revenue.
One of the things that would be affected by that then is something that I'm working on right now, which is the idea of us being able to repatriate some of those foreign profits. Now, here's what would happen with repatriation. It's for the life sciences industry here in our backyard, another area in which jobs are a very, very significant thing. It would allow them to bring those dollars back at a reduced rate, so long as those dollars are invested in research and development here in our backyard, which would put to work Americans who are working in universities and other kinds of places. It would also allow us to continue to put the research into creating cutting-edge medical technology and pharmaceuticals that will allow us to continue to be a net exporter of those around the world. And it means jobs here in our backyard. So what you're trying to say to me is that I should not work for something like that. Rather, we should take those dollars from those foreign profits and I'm trying to put them into the infrastructure bill.
Well, I'm not seeing any disconnect between your position and mine. You're essentially recovering funds, bringing them back home here, applying them to unintended constructive purposes. So if that constructive purpose is infrastructure repair and enhancement, will you support that task accomplished by that technique?
And that's the difficulty that we make every time in Washington, isn't it? We've got to make choices around where things could be, because what you're doing is double counting those dollars. And this is the problem with the healthcare bill. I mean, they double counted a whole number of things to get to places. So the bottom line is, it can only work if you can spend that dollar once. I explained to you where I am because of the jobs that make a difference here in this district in our backyard. Now, I would also love to be able to see, I worked on the T&I committee, as was said, to try to see what we can do to get dollars for the crumbling bridges that we have. I do believe that infrastructure is the kind of investment. This goes all the way back to the days of Lincoln, when we talk about internal improvements. Those are investments. And I do think that they are a place that government is uniquely in a position to make some of those. But then I go back as well, and part of my frustration now is the idea that we've already spent $850 billion that we borrowed from our children. And we only put $40 billion into the very infrastructure that the president is now Why, if that was the right choice before, why wasn't that the right choice from the outset? From that $850 billion, if we could have put $300 billion into the infrastructure, I think we would have been significantly better off. I'm going to take two more questions. Okay, take two more questions instead of say the three. We'll go a little bit over.
First of all, I appreciate having encouraged you to stay out in front of me one day.
I could have done this or gone to the desk today.
The first thing this country's been our area has been devastated. Mortgages, lost jobs, no jobs. My son's half employed, got all this education, and my wife and I were very frustrated. And I'm not even talking about jobs or anything. But the first thing I always do is look at opensecrets.org, and because by looking at that website, you see where things. There are a couple of things that kind of disturbing. And I don't want to. We have to hold you accountable, just like everybody else in the country. Given you're doing a good job, you're really trying to face a gerrymandered district and all those other issues. And I understand that. I noticed that you're number 2, according to opensecrets.org, with the law firm contribution of $51,000. You're number 7, and this is out of 435 members. You're number 2 in law firm contributions. Number 7, real estate. Number 11 in insurance. Now remember, Lady asked about the issue of the insurance industry has, they want the wall torn down so that they can have banks and so forth. And I always thought that was a tough, because there's a conflict of interest there, and it was bad. And so these guys, what I'm concerned about is you're coming in as a freshman, and you got this a lot of pressure from the top telling you got to do this, you got to do that, you don't do this, you're going to take it off that committee, and all this kind of stuff. So if that happens, I'm concerned that these guys are spending, I'm looking, a couple $100,000, which is, you've only raised $760,000 thus far for this particular cycle. So here they've given you a big chunk of money. And I'm not saying they're trying to corrupt you, but what do they get in return? And you're on the TARP committee, which I thought was kind of curious. You're a prosecutor. I expected you to go in for something like, the 39 Social Security numbers and all the eligibility issues, which I'm not even talking about now either. But I was concerned, you're on
okay, I want to make sure that, so the essence of your thing is because I have a contribution.
Yes, everybody we read, and that is, you're part of the targeted asset relief program is TARP, the bailouts, Wall Street, and so forth. And a lot of people in this district would probably be willing to take a tiny cut in their Social Security, maybe a tiny cut in Medicaid, if they saw some of the criminality being taken care of, the bailouts to bankers overseas, the bailouts to bankers in the United States, the bailouts to the mansions in Florida. Nobody has the courage to stand up and go after it. If you stood up in Congress, like Jason Chaffetz and some of these other young freshmen who are just stand up and we'll put you right back in office for standing up for your people. Ben Bernanke is talking about using repos, backing agreements to bring money out of thin air, give it to European banks so they can loan it back to us. And that's your committee, the TARP committee. And that's what I'm concerned about. It's been bothering me ever since I looked at this. I got online this morning, opensecrets.org, and I'm seeing there's a lot of cash, and you're right at the top. And I don't want to be, I'm just trying to hold the accountability. You're not corrupt, you're only a freshman. For goodness sakes. All we're asking is that don't let these guys buy you off, because they're sure trying to. It's right here. I got another line from this morning.
All right, well,
we're going to stand on TARP, Europe bailouts, sending the money back to us. And what does this all this money from the law firm? What does that buy? What does that buy?
well, let me answer that question right there. I mean, it doesn't buy anything.
I understand.
It doesn't buy anything. These are, unfortunately, we are all running in campaign cycles in which this is going to be a highly targeted race, in which people from all over the country are going to be dumping money in to try to put me out. I've got to wake up every day. I've got to turn, and I turn to friends of mine. Why do I have a significant amount of lawyers? Because that's why I was the United States Attorney. I know people who are, well, those are friends from my law firms. Those are friends that I went to law school with. They're individuals who, I have to go, I've got to ask